Hi, I'm Lisa Leiter with the latest edition of Entrepreneurs in Action. We're here at Chase Auditorium where the Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center was holding its startup forecast for 2012. We heard from some of the biggest names in the entrepreneurial scene about what the critical successes were for 2011 and what their outlook is for 2012. After the event, we grabbed a few of those people to talk more about the startup scene for 2012. I'd like to start off by asking about Groupon. How critical is Groupon's success to the startup scene? They went public, they got it done. Now what?
Code Academy is actually in Groupon right now, so our first class was actually based inside of Groupon. And in terms of the software development community, Groupon has played a very big role in supporting the development talent in Chicago, gobbling them up in some sense, but also expanding. So a lot of the training and a lot of the sort of amazing opportunities that have happened in Chicago for software developers and people looking to get software development jobs was fueled by Groupon's emergence. But I will say that a lot of other companies in Chicago are playing a big part in that as well. So while Groupon is definitely our most apparent success, there's so many other companies and amazing opportunities that have really steered the growth of Chicago over the past year.
Yeah, I think that's important. I don't think it's critical, but I think it's great. I think there is a ton of great work that is going on that is nowhere near as big or as well known as Groupon, but certainly the success of Groupon is awesome for the city. It is keeping more engineering talent here. I think all of us in the entrepreneurial scene are rooting for them to continue to succeed. I don't think it's critical in and of itself, though.
Right. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to our startup community, and it shows that we can build world-class internet-based companies in Chicago, put a national and global spotlight on us. But also think about the recycling now of that capital, that wealth creation, back into the community, into new startups through Lightbank or other means, and then the talent that'll eventually maybe leave Groupon and seed the next startups and the next companies.
Matt, I'd like to start with you for the next question because you're new back in the entrepreneurial community. You started your own company, you sold it, you worked in corporate America for 6 years. What do you think is the biggest difference now?
The community back in 6 years ago was very segmented between technology, money, and in my industry, media, and they really were very separate camps. They were not well connected at all. In the 6 years since, the community here, and it was definitely a theme of the event today, has very much come together. And I don't know whether it's just because there are more entrepreneurs that have realized how to network themselves across different communities, whether all the different pieces of the ecosystem have realized that for successful commerce, you have to actually have those different pieces. You need the money, you need marketing and advertising, you need technology. That just wasn't happening 6 years ago. I mean, fundamentally, it was separated.
Kevin, what do you think the most significant accomplishment of 2011 was for the startup scene?
I think it's a coming together and starting to work together and collaborate more often. There's a lot of organizations doing different events, doing different mentorship, advisory, accelerators, talent challenges. I've seen a lot of collaboration for the first time in Chicago and really bringing together a core community. It's been exciting.
We heard from both Howard Tolman, a serial entrepreneur, and Matt McCall, a venture capitalist at New World Ventures, that social, local, mobile is where it's at for 2012. I'm curious if you guys agree with that and if you have any predictions in that space.
In terms of our students trying to be the next, tech entrepreneurs in Chicago, they're building social apps, they're building mobile apps, and they're playing around with Google's geolocation API and embedding them in their applications. So everybody is indeed moving towards social, local, and mobile. We're seeing it every day.
And TAPME's betting on that trend without any question. I mean, so we're in the business of connecting the games industry and the ad industry, and a key tenet of that is the social, local, mobile world. You can look at all the stats about what's happening for mobile devices. Most of it is gameplay, and so for us, that's a huge piece of what we're after. And the reality is, from a brand perspective, they're after starting much cooler conversations with their consumers, and the ability to do that via handheld devices that are always on, always connected, is changing the game. I think it's a massive trend for many industries right now.
And I think the SOLO-MO applies in Chicago specifically because we're using these technology platforms, the social platforms, the local platforms, the mobile platforms, to solve old school business problems. And Chicago's very good at that. We know how to solve marketing problems here, financial services problems. We're layering on this technology and these platforms to do it in a very interesting, scalable way.
Well, let's talk about the venture capitalists and the financial picture. There seemed to be more interest from investors outside of Chicago. I'm curious what your experience is an entrepreneur in that field.
The venture community here is certainly continuing to grow and scaling, do a lot more early stage deals than we probably even saw a couple years ago. Even in the conversations we've had with some of those venture firms in the Valley, for instance, they've said to us there was a time when they wouldn't invest in Chicago, and most of them have changed that mind.
And what do you think is driving them here now? What was the deciding factor that they're now looking at it when they weren't before.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that the success of a company like Groupon helps, puts a lot of focus on this city and attention. I think the success of things like Accelerate, of Lightbank, of guys like Kevin and all the work at the CEC, I think it's the feeling of the momentum. Investors love the momentum. That's what they always want to be part of, right?
And they see a cluster here. You know, before they might have seen pockets of it and been concerned that maybe they need to move that company out to the Valley or the East Coast. But instead, they're seeing a bunch of companies around and they're saying, all right, there's a community to support it. This will be fine. I'm going to keep my investment there.
Yeah, I mean, it works in the same way as appealing to investors when you're an entrepreneur. So you don't go around crawling around trying to pitch and like ask them and beg them to do anything. And we're not begging for attention as Chicago. We just decided to sit down and get our work done and make money and be successful. And with that, a lot of awareness has come from it. Same way you get money.
Let's look ahead to 2012, and I'd like you to give me one, maybe two predictions for the year.
Absolutely. So I think that companies, particularly in Chicago, but everywhere, they're going to start investing in educating more people so they can bring on talent. Because one of the biggest pains and problems right now in any startup or company in Chicago is, oh, we need hiring is an issue. Tech talent, design talent, what have you. And I think companies are going to start to understand that they need to actually grow more, not just move around the pieces that already exist.
Yeah, I think 2012 is the year we'll stop having to ask whether Chicago is a great place for entrepreneurs, because the rest of the world, if you will, is going to figure that out, that it clearly is. And I think you'll see a lot of the bigger companies that we've got here from a startup perspective get sold, go public, again, continue to put more attention on the big successes in Chicago, which will only help the entire community.
The two things that I get really excited about are we've had these seed accelerators here. We've had Accelerate most notably, but now you're seeing variations of that. Healthbox coming out by Sandbox, Impact Engine, a collaboration between Booth and Kellogg. I also am really excited about the concept of building more places for people to come together, for the community to come together, to co-work, to co-locate, for education to happen, for events to happen. Really more energy centers for the startup community in 2012.
All right, well, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here today. And that's this edition of Entrepreneurs in Action. Thanks for watching.